We had some direction from our superintendent, Mark Davidson, at the time, that it was a framework that he was really interested in exploring. And so I had picked up the book, and I still remember buying the book at home, opening up the first couple pages and thinking how well it fit into some of the conversations we were having, how it was the potential for it to be not an extra or an add-on, just a platform or a way that we could put all of the things we were doing into to support students. And so after, I think, the second page, I put it down and I emailed all the teachers and said, I've just started this book. I'm wondering who else might be interested in reading it with me. Every teacher emailed back and said, it sounds really interesting. I'll take a copy. And that's how it started. There was a lot of engagement in digging into the book and what collaborative response was all about. And so, as I mentioned before, I just really sent the invite out as to whoever wants to explore this with me, feel free.
He invited anyone who wanted to have a book study, and I think everyone was on board. And that just let everyone kind of dive into the book and really understand for themselves first, before it just being kind of thrown at them, that what this framework was about.
One of my favorite quotes is, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." It was a perfect opportunity for me, being new, coming into the building and exploring a new model, just to spend a couple months really developing the school culture in terms of what do we believe and what does our building look like, sound like, and feel like. I used anonymous surveys throughout the first few months just to make sure that teachers trusted the direction that I wanted to go, wanted to make sure that they were ready to dig into the work around collaborative response. And when I was sure that I had that commitment, that's when we started really working into things. We built in the structure to support the work. I think that's really important. And so we built in embedded collaborative time before we fully engaged in all of the different pieces of collaborative response. And we used embedded collaborative time to explore collaborative response and what goes into being a collaborative response school. And so that was kind of the process we used. We took our time in some ways, and we played around with certain things as well. But for me, it was culture first, getting the structures in place to support the work. So it was really the four of us, I would consider being the collaborative response leadership group. Dave, who's the vice principal, and myself as principal, our classroom support teacher. Annetta supports the school with a variety of things, including inclusion, programming, assessment. She facilitates ISP, does staff capacity building. And then our OLC in the district also played a key role in collaborative response. And their role is also to build capacity with teachers in the building. In the beginning, we maybe had more distinct roles from one another, but it's really turned into more of a blend now. And so, for example, if I'm not there to facilitate a collaborative team meeting, then Annetta or Dave are quite comfortable in facilitating meetings. We've worked really closely in continuing to support the framework, to refine it.
You know, Todd has often said, move slow to go fast, and that's kind of what we did. We just really started off slow. We started the whole process. Like he said, that embedded time for teachers was so beneficial to really understand what it is we were doing. And we made mistakes, and we weren't all clear in the beginning. And so it was just about accepting everybody and feeling safe with the people you were in a collaborative group with, and establishing all of that in the beginning. And once we could all feel safe as a community, you started to be more comfortable. You started to ask questions. You admitted things you didn't know, because, you know, as professionals, we don't want to say we don't know that, right? We don't want to admit we don't have the answer. We don't want to be vulnerable, but this gave us that time to be vulnerable and to ask those questions, knowing that other people had the same questions.
I know one of the things that has changed significantly is the way that teachers are able to really clearly articulate what it is students need or what gaps they might have. At one point, we spoke in a lot of generalities, or the students just don't seem to be getting it or understanding it. And they've come to a point now where, because of collaborative team meetings and because of using data and evidence and because of collaboration, are really able to articulate what key issues there might be that students need to address. And then the ability to quickly come up with a variety of strategies and interventions to meet those needs. The conversations now that are more data informed, I think, are a lot richer as well. Teachers are able to not only clearly articulate student needs, but then able to back that up with evidence and data, which I think has also contributed to teacher efficacy. And so teachers know what they're doing is working, and then they have the data to support that.
Having our collaborative time has been extremely beneficial for our teachers. It's giving them that opportunity to work together and to discuss student needs and to not miss out on those kids who might have flown under the radar in the past. And then we've seen that success impact the students as well. They've gained the confidence, and we've seen that in the classroom. One of the things that we did as a school is we implemented kind of an intervention time where we offered these small groups of instruction. And so within that, we saw the success with kids' literacy improve. That was a big focus with our school, is because we noticed that our literacy was really not where we would have liked it to have been, to say the least. And we knew we needed to make adjustments, and using collaborative time and the CRM framework to do that was extremely beneficial. I mean, we would get kids from other classrooms joined together, so they're meeting each other. So they weren't just singled out. We would switch the teachers who they worked with. It was all very fluid in how it worked. And that has transferred over to the bigger classrooms where it's just given them a voice. This CRM framework just allowed us to build those connections with kids and get them to feel comfortable enough around us that they will perform for us.
And looking at how that intervention time, a number of the kids would be upset when they knew that we weren't able to offer it on certain days, or there was times where we may take a little break just as a reset, do some assessments, see where kids were at, and then restructure things. And it was interesting how many of the kids would be asking either one of the three of us, when were we going to be back again? Definitely hearing them say that was, I think, very meaningful.
It's important to understand that our intervention time wasn't just for kids who needed intervention, right? We involved every kid. We would take that data in our collaborative time. We would group kids accordingly. So whether it was they needed some challenging work, whether they were where they were at, or whether they did need some intervention.
I was given those students that were at the higher end, and I could then push them in ways that maybe in the homeroom, the teacher didn't have the opportunity to always engage with them and push them beyond in those higher level thinking questions. So we were able to take other novels and break them down and read it from different perspectives. De Bono's 6 Thinking Hats. So I was able to introduce some of those perspectives on how can you think at this from a different angle than what we normally might ask you a question from. So not just strictly from intervention fix, but also pushing the other students a little farther along the way too.
It really was a whole school approach. It was all hands on deck. And so everybody in the building was involved in collaborative response. I was very involved, Dave, and at a collaborative time, we sat in with teachers, running intervention groups. We all had kids at some point within the day. And so it really was, we built the capacity, I would say, among our instructional assistants as well, so that they are now in a position that they can run intervention groups and have a better knowledge of literacy and numeracy and how to support kids. One of the most immediate, I think, pieces of evidence that we did see was we used STAR screening to assess where students are at throughout the year. Within a year of, I would say, full implementation of collaborative response, an 18% increase, according to STAR, of students reading at grade level. We also had many incidents of kids that would not even register on the screen jump up several levels, and so maybe still weren't reading at grade level, but definitely saw growth consistently.
Each of the teams made up their own norms, and then when I arrived in the year after, we actually just went to school norms that we developed, and everyone had, obviously, we prioritized how we would go about what was important to our meetings, what that would look like. Within that, I feel is really important from that point, not just in the collaborative response part, but also into staff meetings and or any other meetings, is just always honoring that those agreements.
Our collaborative team meetings is certainly an area that we had to work through some things, and where, it's in the beginning for a while there, it might be 20 or even 30 minutes talking about a student, to where we've gotten to the point now where it is a timer on the wall, 10 minutes, background information, key issue, strategies, go, commitments, follow up. And so it's really one of the areas that we certainly made improvements in.
Yeah, and even with that, Todd, too, is this year is the check-in, like 2 to 3 weeks in, where are you at with it? Which I know not always did some of our teachers appreciate, but also just that accountability piece. And we held ourselves to that part, who was going to do what, and making sure we came back and touched base, not policing, but just as a reminder. And so then the next meeting we could celebrate those successes as well.
We also found that we wanted to invest time before CTMs. And so often the week before, during collaborative time, we would have a little dialogue around what kids we wanted to bring forward the next week. Like, I still remember quite clearly our first CTM, where I was literally, oh, that's a great question for a speech language pathologist. I'm running down the hallway to see if I can pull her in, to, okay, we're going to talk about articulation. Let's make sure we get our SLP here. Or we're talking about a kid that might need some movement breaks. We're going to get OT involved. And so we just wanted to streamline that process so that when we did come together, we had the right people around the table. Having some of those documents done in advance, I think, really helped. What's discussed or what is brought up during a collaborative team meeting can become a focus for further embedded collaborative time. If a teacher finds they're struggling with a certain key issue and we're able to identify it, then that can lead to further professional learning. An example would be a year or two ago, a teacher identifying fluency as an issue in her room, and then just really dug into fluency for several months in order to bring that into her classroom, knowing that it was a key ingredient of literacy.
The continuum of supports has been a work in progress for our school. It started off, we had a PD day, and we had OLC come and we did a big activity about and trying to build our continuum supports, and like, what does that look like? And so originally we had so many ideas, so many things, and just overlapped, and it's the same thing said differently here, and but we didn't want to dismiss anything that the teachers brought forward, right? Because this was something that they're building and they're going to refer to. And so we kept it all. I think it is important that the teachers did have input in this continuum of supports because it does show that the work that they are doing in the classroom and the successes that they are having. And when they are struggling, we can look at it, it's visual, and say, hey, what about this? Have you tried this? And maybe it's something that they used to do all the time and they just forgot about it. And so it's bringing it back to the forefront again. And we've been trying to redefine it, and we're still building it, we're still working on it.
One of the exciting parts is, as Annetta said, moving from where we thought having this huge laundry list of things, like we thought the more the better, to now having discussions around some of the really big rocks that can help support students. And so it's not necessarily having 100 things on each tier. It's more about having 10 or 15 really solid foundational pieces.
Some things that naturally were on that list originally that now are like almost non-negotiables that should just naturally be happening for every student, because they're all tier 1 things.
Establishing that culture where collaboration isn't always just about agreeing with one another and tiptoeing around things, and just getting to the point where you can say, yeah, what's best for kids.
You know, Curtis was always so supportive of everything we did at Southview, and obviously will continue. But it was one of those ones, just sometimes having those conversations and how do you get there? And yeah, it's been nice, that whole piece of always remembering about what this is about, the kids, not us.
The realization of teachers and us included that these kids aren't their kids. It's not your kid in that class. These kids are our kids. And I think that was a real mind shift in a lot of thinking, is that, wow, okay, so I can share my kids and their needs with other teachers and with my admin and be supported with that. And I think that really has helped, because before this framework was implemented, it was really a teacher in their classroom with their kids.
From the very beginning, when we went down this path, the support from Jigsaw Learning and from Curtis and Lorna, has a lot of these things that we brought in has been a result of conversations with them. And it's almost like it really is joining a community, from what I found. And just yesterday, I was on the website and I found, I was reading a blog on a behavior matrix, shared it with 2 staff members. They loved the idea. And so the plan is tomorrow is to reach out to that school to learn a little bit more. And I think that there's a lot of value in just the networking that has come out of this too. I have visited schools in Edmonton and in different parts of the province who's also engaging in the work. And I think just as a collective, it's just been really exciting. It certainly has not been an extra. It has never been about adding something else to the plate. It's just been a way of organizing the plate, maybe, so it's not so messy and overwhelming. That it was an all-in approach that, I was committed to it just as much as I would have expected any teacher, instructional assistant, or anyone else in the building. An indicator of being successful is when you can step away and that culture continues and the processes continue, and I'm sure it will, because it was very much a team approach. It was much more than just myself. It was several people involved, including all of the teachers, and so I'm sure the great work will continue and will get better too, with me leaving and with somebody else coming in with some new ideas perhaps. I'm also excited to watch the change and the growth that I'm sure is to happen there.